Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, where we help practice owners become better entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dino Watt. And welcome once again, everybody, to the Propreneur Podcast. Excited to have you here today for another great episode. I'm your host, Dino Watt, and I am excited to share with you always the best practices that you can have in your practice. Always bringing you guests that I think are going to add more and more value to you. I also want to give a big shout out to all of our listeners who are sharing this podcast with their friends and colleagues. As always, that's the way that we grow. We are over, I think we're over 110 episodes at this point, and that's all because of you, because you continue to listen, you continue to share this with your friends and colleagues, and we really appreciate that. On today's episode, we are going to talk with MGE Management Experts. And I was actually lucky enough to, you probably have noticed that if you're listening to the show consistently, that over the last couple of episodes, I've been having guests on that I've met at Smiles at Sea event. I've talked about Smiles at Sea a few times. And I was able to meet Anthony. I actually watched him speak, and the similarities between our lives and how we've come to be in this industry are shockingly scary. And so I went up to him, talked to him at his booth, and I said, we need to have a conversation. And then we had a conversation after the event. And today I brought him and his business partner, I should say, and Jeff Santone together on the show. So welcome both of you to the show, Anthony and Jeff. I'm really glad to have you both here.
Thank you, Dino. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it is crazy, the similarities of our stories. So I appreciate it. This is great.
Yeah, I don't think most people know that I was a circus clown at one point. And so, no, I'm just kidding. But many people know that I started off wanting to be an actor, and that was my whole goal in life. I was a dancer growing up. I was the only dancer in like the Tri-City area in my little town in Southern California. And that was my goal in life. I got to work for Disney, and I did work in the movie industry, but it just wasn't conducive to being a dad and wanting to be around my kids. And making money was one of those weird things I needed to do. And acting just wasn't always the best thing to do. So I pivoted, as you did as well. And so it was just cool to hear that story and to see that we both got to recognize that we could still use some of those talents and some of those passions in what we do today. And we want to dive into that for sure. But before we get into all of that, as we do on every episode of the Propreneur Podcast, is we talk about story. I think story connects everyone. And so Anthony and Jeff, if you guys can take turns just telling me, telling the audience your story of how you got here and what is it that you do. Okay,
go ahead, Jeff. Why don't you tell your story first?
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks, Dino, for having us. Story, let's see. I was big into business, worked on Wall Street, worked at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, never thought I'd end up here. Wow. End up meeting my wife, Virginia, oral surgeon. And I somehow get talked into joining the practice and helping her. And we took a practice that was very much insurance-based. We had, I think, at the time, 8 PPOs, 2 HMOs in the practice. So a lot of production, but a lot of write-offs. We're in a big city, and it cost a lot to be there. And we found MGE through a colleague who said, hey, listen, these guys helped us out with getting our practice to be successful. Maybe you should look into them. So we started there in 2007, and we took our $600,000 a year practice in collections, $850 in production. And you know what I'm talking about, right, Dino, when I talk production?
Yep.
Yeah, you know.
Everybody listening says
everybody knows it, right? So write-off and adjustment.
Yeah.
And we took it to a $2.5 million practice in 4 years, completely fee for service, with just one surgeon, 8 staff members. We worked 4 days a week. And we had a lot of fun. We built a brand new office. We then ventured out into general practices, and I've worked a couple others. And during that time, MG just asked if I'd like to speak for them. They go around the country delivering free seminars. And so I'm fully trained. I don't need to be at the office, and that's what I do. So I ended up speaking for MG. I really enjoy speaking for MGE because without the training to run the business, we wouldn't have had the practice or have the practice that we had through those times. So it's fantastic, and everybody needs some help. especially on the business side of dentistry. And that's how I ended up here. So now I'm speaking to doctors all the time about how to take control of their practice.
Interesting. First of all, I love how you said, like, somehow or another, I ended up working in practice. The somehow or another is your wife's name, most likely, and that you like being a happily married man. The second of all, I think it's fascinating that you come from a business background. I don't know if I'm sure you had the same experience as I did, in the sense of when I got in this industry, I was shocked at how poorly prepared all of these doctors were to run a business and be entrepreneurs. And that, I think it's almost malpractice that they don't teach it in school. So did you feel the same way?
Yes, I went through 4 years of undergraduate. I went through advanced degrees, training, all in business, years and years of it. And I learned one thing: don't open your own business. And I have,
right.
I have business training. And here I'm talking to Virginia, and she's got 4 years of undergraduate, 4 years of general dentistry, 6 years of oral surgery. What do you know about business? Nothing. And then they set you loose and go open a practice. And so you're right. It's a little bit of it's a setup to failure, but it's a testament to how great these clinical skill sets must be. I mean, that they don't know how to run a business and they're still open.
Right.
20% of all businesses are going to fail in the first year, 30% in year 2, 50% by year 5, 70% by year 10. And these guys are in business. So they're doing something so great with their clinical skill sets that if they could just even out that business side a little bit,
right?
They'd rock
a little gasoline on the business side. They'd be great. Yep. Totally good.
So, yes, I
love it. Well, thank you for sharing that, Jeff. That's awesome. That's so cool. All right, Anthony, your turn.
So as mentioned earlier, I started out going, I want to, be an actor, but it was
I gotta sing, I gotta dance.
I gotta dance, I gotta sing. That's it, but it was actually, because when I was really young, I saw a lot of poor people in Detroit and around the world. I'm like, wow, this is insane. And so my goal was to make millions of dollars and give it to the poor. And that's what I was going to do. And I was going to do it through acting. And so I went to Hollywood and I started doing TV and movies. I did a movie and I was the lead, and Eric Estrada from Chips was a bit part. Nice. And it was awesome. I started signing autographs. What was that?
Poncherello.
Yeah, Ponch was in the house. And that was, I started signing autographs, and that was a lot of fun. But then I had I got in a car crash, and all of a sudden a friend, a neighbor, helped me recover pretty rapidly. And I was like, wow, actually, my purpose is to help. I don't need to make millions to help. I can help right now. And so I started doing volunteer work for like the next 15 years.
Wow.
And then, I was like, okay, time to have a family. And volunteer work doesn't pay for family that well. So I was like, okay, time to make some income. And a friend of a friend said, hey, we need a sales executive. And I'd done lots of sales. When I was a teenager doing door-to-door sales, said we need a sales executive at this company. And so I flew in town and checked it out and joined up with them. And it happened to be a dental orthodontic, manufacturer. It was actually when C.O.R.E, that's the name of the company, had about 400 dentists, and it was just starting off. And I came on board as the chief marketing officer and was that for 9 years and grew the company to about 20,000 plus providers internationally. And we sold the company. What was great, though, is we used tons of money to donate towards creating wells and, where poor people didn't have any, water. And so we did tons of good things. And that was awesome. But then that changed with the new ownership. And so it was time to look for a new game. And how I got to MGE was this. I'd met thousands of dentists. I love dentists because they're good people. And I hired 3 different companies while I was at C.O.R.E to help them with marketing, to help them grow their companies. Mm-hmm. And I just wasn't impressed with the results. Mm-hmm. And so when I was looking for my new game, a friend of mine called me up and said, hey, come on down to this company. They train dentists how to be CEOs, and they have amazing results. I'm like, really? And it's not consultants, it's a training company. So I said, okay, I'll check it out. And I flew in town, and first thing I see is about a seminar room that has about 500 dentists and staff in it, which was itself pretty amazing. And I interviewed that day 12 different doctors. And I said,
Wow.
tell me your life before MGE training and afterwards. And I was blown away. I mean, I think the lowest percent increase was 20% increase.
Wow.
And, but the stories were just phenomenal. And so after hearing that, and, the purpose of MGE is to actually improve the dentist so much that they can affect their environment and help others around them. And so their clients are in the top 1% of the US and Canada. And with their success, they reach out and help the community in whatever way they want to. And so after talking with the 12 of these doctors and seeing what they're doing now to help others around them, I was like, that's it, I'm on board. So I've been here for 2 years and it's just been amazing. I love it.
That's way cool. That's great. I love seeing journeys of things that are like-minded or like-intended that you actually gravitate towards. And here you go. You're in this space of where you started out wanting to help people and wanting to, give back. And here you're doing that in this way. So that's really, really cool. I got to ask, because I know everybody's asking. I know everybody is going to be texting me saying, how come you didn't ask this question? What's the name of the movie?
Oh, so it was a movie. It was called A Party Called Earth, and it was for Nickelodeon.
A Party Called Earth.
Yeah, A Party Called Earth.
That says Blockbuster all over it. Like that. That's obviously wow.
No, it was a total B movie. It was hilarious.
Did you have it? Did you have a stage name or was it?
Oh, geez, yeah. It's kind of embarrassing, but like I start out in the movie and I'm blue makeup. Like literally, I'm all blue because I was an alien, right? And coming to Earth, and I start out driving this Porsche in the Hollywood Hills with the camera right there, and it was wild. It was, that was like a long time ago. So please do not look at that movie. That was.
I'm so looking it up. That better be on YouTube. We're gonna have a YouTube watch party later.
Oh man, that was really funny.
Wow, I'm gonna become your fan club president there and see what I can create for that. That's awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about what MGE does specifically, why it's different. What's the secret sauce? Like when you have talking to people and you've got 20% increases and more, and you have Jeff, your story of being able to see a huge turnaround. And by the way, I love that you had the qualifier of like 1 doctor, 8 team members, because I know a lot of guys think, hey, in order for me to get 4 million in production, I've got to be, adding team members. I got to be adding days. Yeah, sure. I can do. I hear this, right? I could do 4 million if I was, working 4 to 5 days a week. And if I was, working open on Saturdays and stuff like that. What does MG do specifically, and what's the secret sauce?
So Jeff, you want to answer that since you actually did all the training yourself?
Yeah. I would say the one big difference that changed for our practice, and it's the thing we still teach now, if you come to any of the free seminars that we offer, any of the new patient workshop, case acceptance type stuff, like I said, there's nothing wrong with Virginia's clinical skill set, but what she wasn't really good at was getting the patient to want what they need. And this is the only group I've seen out there that teaches that a dentist should sell their product. The owner should be able to sell their product. So important. And when we made that small transition, and you have to get over that dirty word of sales and what is sales, and and everybody's selling something. The shirt on
everybody, all life is sales. You bet.
Life is a sell. And so it's just that they're taught they shouldn't talk numbers. And what MG is teaching is, no, you need to talk numbers, not because you're trying to get money from the patient, but everybody wants it till they hear how much it costs, and that was the big thing. Virginia, how's your case acceptance? Oh, it's really good. It's fantastic. Well, then why are we doing what we're doing? Well, no one pays. No one shows up. I said, yeah, but then where are you getting paid? Well, they tell me they want to do it. I was like, well, yeah. So when we changed to, well, let's put you back into the sales equation, the practice took off. And the awesome thing is once she was qualified to sell, once she knew she could, she no longer had to.
Right.
That was the secret.
Yeah. It's very interesting. That's a great secret that a lot of people don't get. And I love sales. I love the aspect of them. I love what it does for us. Like you said, everything is sales. from selling your kids on eating breakfast to, you know, whatever, selling your wife on going on a date to anything in life is a sale.
Right.
And so to get the idea that once you are, as you said, qualified, what a great word. You're qualify yourself to know, I know what I'm talking about. I know how to ask people for money. I know how to overcome those objections. All of a sudden, those things fall by the wayside. It's not a task anymore. It's just who you are.
That's right.
It just makes it so much easier. Anthony, when you think about the secret sauce, would you say it's around the same thing, around sales, or is there more?
You know, before I started working here, I had to see it for myself. And so I did one of the seminars. And as soon as I did it, like 3 hours in, I was like, no wonder these doctors are doubling, tripling, quadrupling their practice, because it's exactly that. They've been taught in schools, you do not, sell. That's what they're taught. They're taught.
Oh, yeah.
You do not talk money with your patient because they think you're money motivated. Basically, they've been given all false information.
It's so funny that you just said that, though, Anthony. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're like, they think they're money motivated. Well, what other motivation is there to own a business? Like, that's so crazy, right? To think that they've been taught not to be money motivated. And I don't know, like I use the example all the time about Mother Teresa and how people think that she was so poor and all stuff. It's like that girl died. Like that, I'm disrespectful. Okay. That woman, she died having multi-millions in bank accounts for the corporations because she understood you can't feed the poor with good thoughts. It's like you're saying, Jeff, right? When you're talking Virginia and saying, well, how do you know? Well, they said they wanted it. They said yes, but they could say yes all day long, but until they hand you the credit card, it's a no.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Anthony, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I totally agree with you. That's so crazy, right?
It is. It's crazy. They're taught not to sell. And what's crazy is some of these consultants say the same thing. Like I met one doctor, Dr. Sambal Naqvi, and she told me she spent a year or 2 years and spent tens of thousands of dollars on 2 different consultants. And they both told her that she has to move. And yet she's got 5 years left on her practice in her lease. And they said after she gave them like over $50,000, you have to move. Sorry. And there's nothing else I can do for you. And she
have to move because
it was a bad location.
Because people don't want dental work. Like that seems really weird.
She was told that she has low patient IQ. Like the patients in her area have
it's the patient's
IQ,
fault. Right.
And there's nothing that they could do for her. It was 2 different consultants, and there's nothing they could do. And they said, you have to move. And she's got 5 years left on her lease. And her break even was 40,000. She just made 20,000. She was about to file bankruptcy. And then a friend of hers found out about this, said, wait a minute, you've got to try MGE. And this is one of the doctors that I interviewed. And she said, after 3 days of training, learning how to sell, she came back to the same low, IQ patients and doubled her practice within 30 days.
I'm not surprised.
And then she was 6 months behind in rent. She paid all the back rent within the next month. And it's just been an upswing ever since. And now she's happy as a clam, achieving her goals. And it's because she was taught how to communicate effectively with patients who give a barrier, because they do. I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have this. And no one drills doctors how to handle these objections, ever. And so that's what we do. We drill them.
So let me ask you like how you guys feel about this, because I'm sensing that you're on the same page of what I feel of. Tell me the difference in your guys' world of presenting a case versus closing a case.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, that's presentation's the education. Like I need to know why I'm going to spend $5,000, but that's presentation. Closing is going, good. How do you want to pay for it?
Right.
And now we're into, okay, what's the real reason you don't want it? What's the real, objection behind this? It's never time. It's not money. It's not insurance, because these guys show up in pain 3 months later and they don't care about any of that stuff.
Yep.
And they're willing to plop down $5,000 or $1,000 or $500, whatever it is. So it's the presentation. Doctors give themselves 9, 10s. And then I ask, well, what's your case acceptance rate? One, most of them don't even know it.
Right.
That's problem number one. But the ones that do track it, they're, like 30, 40%, which is probably an overestimate. But I'm like, well, how are you at 10, but only at 40%? Like those two things can't match up. And so I think we're probably on the same page where education is the presentation. I need to know what it is and how much.
Sure.
But closing it is, you got to pay for it. It's not sold until it's paid for.
How often do you see people get so stuck up on that education part, the presentation, that they think that the better they can educate somebody, the more they'll say yes, as opposed
all the time.
That's like
all the time.
100% of the problem. And I think it's like, a guy says to patient sits down and doctor goes, look, it's 2 crowns, it's $2,000. And the patient goes, I don't have any money. And they go, well, it's going to cost more in the future if we don't handle it now. And I was like, but the guy just told you he has no money. Why are you trying to tell him? Like it's an answer, no answer type deal. And
right.
They're not handling the objection. And if they would just sit down and listen and really like, okay, I got it, and really acknowledge this patient of what they're saying, they would actually get into what's the real reason behind it.
So the challenge I see so often is these guys love to, like, if we were to equate this to dating, right? I haven't been dating in the dating pool for 26, 7 years, 8 years, but I still know the principle of no matter how good you talk yourself up and no matter how good you talk them up. Oh, you're amazing. You're gorgeous. You're wonderful. I'm awesome. I'm wealthy, whatever. Until you actually ask them on the date, they're not going to say yes. Like there's no principle. There's no way they can say it.
Right.
But doctors sit there and date and try to spew more information, more education on them, even fear-based education of like, this will kill you if you don't do this, right? It's like, but asking for it. Anthony, you're going to say something about that.
No, I mean, that really is the secret sauce, is they've never been trained on how to sell ever. And they think education is selling, and it's not.
Well, let's talk about the pushback though, right? Because I know you guys get pushback of this of like, but here's my favorite. My results will sell themselves.
You nailed it.
How good I am.
How good I am.
Spread like wildfire, and everybody's going to come to me.
No.
Yeah. Well, and this is the cool thing about MGE is that when a doctor comes on board or is interested in our services, we don't tell them, what they need to do. We ask them, well, what's your goal? What are your
What do you want?
goals?
Yep.
Because maybe the doctor just simply wants more time for his family.
Yep.
Or maybe he does want more income. Maybe his profitability is horrible. So we find out, well, what is your goal? Do you want to 5x your production, or do you want to work, 3 days a week instead of 5 and make the same amount of income? It's whatever that doctor's goal is what we then go, okay, good. So you're not achieving that now. How important is it for you to achieve that goal? If it's important enough, then they're going to take the time to get trained and educated in the business side of dentistry, which is what they're missing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So true.
Yeah.
Tell me about the pushback that you get in the sense of, I don't want to focus on sales. I want to focus on being a good practitioner. Yeah. How do you overcome that mindset piece? Because I believe sales really is a mindset. It really is about overcoming those past objections that you have about yourself, and so much of our own objections. I actually just did this recently on a little Instagram post where I talked about the 5 unpleasant truths that owners need to hear. And I say that the objection I basically say this, the objection that you give is the objection you're going to get. So if you're somebody who, when you go to buy something and you're like, well, I need to go talk to my wife about this. And, oh, well, I don't buy things on the first time I hear about it. I always take some time to think about it. And then if people are saying that back to you, you have no right to get upset about that.
You probably agree with it.
Yeah. Right. So how do you overcome that mindset piece, Jeff?
I tell doctors, it's funny because I do this. I ask them, when did you realize you became a business owner more than you were a clinical doctor? And my really smart guys, most of them actually answer by year 1. End of year 1, I realized I was no longer a dentist. I was more a business owner. And if they can make that realization, these are our clients, right? The guys that can't make that realization, they don't end up becoming our clients, because to them, they are going to hire the 20-year-old at the front desk to sell their services. And I tell these guys all the time where it's like, dentistry is one of the biggest setups out there. You go through school, you
Totally.
get your degree, and they hand you your license after you pass all your tests and you qualify, and they go, you're now able to deliver dentistry. And that's just not true. You don't get to deliver the dentistry you only get to deliver the dentistry you know how to sell. So if you can't sell it, taking all these extra courses on ortho, on endo, on implants, that's just a waste of money for the business. You're heavy into debt for a CBCT, for all of those things. You're going to pay full price, and it's not going to go the way you think it is. You can't sell what you're an expert in already. What's the likelihood a 10-day course is going to get you to do something else? So I tell these guys, if you would like to improve your clinical skill set, you have to do more of it. To do more of it, you got to get your patients to want it. And so that's the sales aspect. If you'd like to be an expert, you've got to sell your services.
How many of the people come to you like they just bought the $250,000 laser and they're realizing, oh, this isn't doing me any good. I need to know how to actually get people to, like, fear-based sales of like, oh crap. It's kind of like that moment where you realize you have to feed your children, like you have to get a job to feed your children, right? Change things. Right. Do you have that type of situation where people are coming to you in fear of like, I just bought this huge laser, which, by the way, obviously we all know they should have actually come to you before they bought the laser, because it's not the laser that's going to do anything, but they do. They go and they buy the toy, they buy the gadget thinking they can claim to have the best technology and nobody cares about that except for them. Right. But they come to you in that fear. How often does that happen?
Anthony, we don't actually hear like, I just bought this, I need to learn how to get it. They see, to them, that's their solution.
Yes, right. Totally.
Things are going wrong. What do I need?
Realization of not the solution is when they come to you.
Things are going bad. What do you need? A C.O.R.E. Like, oh, wait, what?
Yeah, they don't realize the cause of their problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're
dealing with the symptom. They try to focus on the symptom. Right?
Exactly. And so then after typically an hour of our seminar, they're starting to realize, okay, yeah, I don't know business.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, Jeff, about like somebody realizing they're a business owner. I have this whole thing around there's difference between being a business owner and a business operator, right? And so how do you help them come to that realization that the operation is not where the money is, but the ownership is? The operation is not where they're going to find lasting success, but the ownership is. How do you get them to kind of have that mind shift?
That's probably, it's in a step, it's in a gradient form, like you can't, we're not trying to move them, because that's a big leap for these guys to just go, how do I get out of how do I go from chair side to CEO? Right. And to them, that's such a wide gap that a lot of guys most of our clients, I would say, have a hard time seeing that. Of course, we get clients that start that are doing fantastic numbers and they're just like, I'd like to do more, and I'd do that. But if we give them just a little bit, like, look, own the marketing aspect. Good. You know how to find quality patients. Good. Now own the sales aspect. You know how to sell. Good. You're starting to lift yourself out of the operation. Right. And so the more you get to do down in the operation, the more you can show them, like, look, get rid of that, get rid of this. Oh, wow, you're a CEO now, And so it's almost like smoke and mirrors type of deal. Because if you were to try to tell them, like, imagine at the beginning of their dental program, like, if they hadn't committed to and paid, like, this is what you're going to end up being able to do, they'd be like, well, probably not going to get there.
Right.
Like, it's a 4-year process to do all that and lots of training. So we tell them, like, you could be a CEO. But changing their mindset is a little bit of showing them the doing this is on these certain areas of the business that allow them to turn it over and get rid of it, which is the most important part. I don't think any dentist wants to be down in the day-to-day operations. If you ask them their long-term goal, would love to be a CEO, would love to be a business owner who just watches it and manages it and cherry picks cases if that's what they want. But they need an option. Right now, most of them don't have a choice. They have no other choice but to be chair side 40 hours.
That's really an important cue. I hope everybody got that, is that they need to have options. Like, when you aren't feeling like you have options is when you do desperate stuff and you do stupid things.
Right.
But knowing that you have those options is key. Anthony, I'd love to hear some kind of success stories of what you've seen. Obviously, we have Jeff here, who is a living success story, obviously joined the company because of that. But what I'd love to, obviously you guys have seen some dramatic changes from people.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one, because one of the doctors that I interviewed before I started working here, his goal was to do, and purpose is to do, he does a lot of charity, a lot of helping kids and so forth. He started with the company, he told me, and he was doing, I think it was like 18,000 a month, something like that. And he was in a building in downtown Philly with like 36 other 36 other practices, right?
Oh, wow.
And it was just him and a couple of staff. And he told me that he was like at his wit's end. It was like crazy. And he did our training and immediately he increased his production. And now fast forward, he is now a CEO. He did go from chair side to CEO. And now he does a Zoom meeting once a week on Fridays just to check in with the team, because he actually lives in New York now. And he does mostly volunteer work. And he did lots of great things during COVID. He helps kids with computers so they could study, tons of volunteer. And that's why I work here, is because of successes like him, where he starts out, he's got this great purpose, but he's not doing well. And now he's just phenomenally successful. And I think he was doing like 350,000 a month from 18,000 a month, and we trained his whole team, and it's just a smooth running practice. And he's a CEO. He's now helping others because of his success.
Yeah.
And that's why I decided to work here.
Wow, that's awesome. You guys have talked a lot about the sales side of things, but it also sounds like there's a lot of that the purpose driven, like helping people actually find what is the purpose for what they're doing. Anthony, you've talked a few times about, helping people who have a bigger vision than just, I want to do some more crowns all day long, right? That they actually want to do something with that. How does that come into play with the conversation that you have during the training?
It's it really is about, some people, they just want to be able to, pay the bills, and others have great, huge goals, and it really is the individual, but at the end of the day, I know from talking personally with 1,000 dentists that we help them achieve their goals. They will help others. They just do. They're very kind people. And, we just celebrated our owners conference, which is kind of like when you do all the training a couple weeks ago. And we had a nice charity with the American Tooth Fairy. And just in like 40 minutes, we helped raise almost $40,000 for the American Tooth Fairy, which is a charitable organization helping kids who can't afford. So,
That's
so
awesome.
it's really, I see it as inevitable. When we help them, they will help others.
I didn't know that there was an American Tooth Fairy. I thought all tooth fairies were for everybody, but that's
there is. I know.
I didn't know there was a Spanish Tooth Fairy and a Japanese Tooth Fairy. I thought it was. Wow.
Yeah, I just, I haven't met the Spanish one, but I'm sure they exist. So
that sounds like a cool charity there. That's really neat. So how did COVID affect you guys, Jeff? You guys do a lot of in-person meetings. You definitely have a lot of people that come out to do those courses with you. How did COVID affect you?
I remember when it all happened, and we were a road-based crew. Like our area, what Anthony and I do, and we've been doing it. I've been doing it since 2011. Is we traveled all over the United States and Canada delivering free seminars. We delivered our new patient workshop in 9 cities, across the U.S. And as it was all coming down the line, we're like, whoa, what is going to happen here? And I remember thinking, like, it is going to be scary, but if we can pivot and get through it, like, we're going to come through it in such a way that we'll be able to offer more than we ever could in the past. And that's exactly what happened. We had to shut down our travel team. And basically, we're doing our new patient workshops, our free seminars online via Zoom. They're interactive. They're a lot of fun. Our communication sales seminars has transitioned to in-person and online. Over 80% of the training has transitioned to, you no longer need to be here. When I was a client, if that were capable, I would have saved myself thousands of dollars,
right,
trying to train my staff. And who wasn't I going to train because I can't fly them to Florida? Now you just put them in front of the computer. They watch it. They get it. They're all on the same page. It has been what a fantastic, and it's true for every business that makes it through this. Every business that survives this will come out of it stronger. The things they have put in to make themselves survive
Yep.
the things that are going to strengthen them in the end.
Has it opened you up to outside of Northern America?
Yeah, we've had, I think we've had somebody attend the new patient from India. We've had a lot of interest from Australia, but the time zone is like almost exactly
crazy.
It's a little bit tough. But yeah, like Dubai, Portugal, Thailand, Taiwan.
England.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's great. That I agree with you. I think that it's one of those things that at first it was like a oh no moment, and then it's like, well, wait a minute. If everybody's on board, because before there were people who were trying to do, virtual events. I've been doing virtual stuff since 2010, but when it comes to events, like they'd be like, oh, you can Skype in or you can Zoom in, and they became the people you forgot about during the event because they're on Zoom, like no one's thinking about them. And yet now it's so accepted that I don't think it'll ever go away. And I think it'll be something that we can now see as a benefit to our businesses of being able to say, well, if you can't come in person, we have the virtual option, and cool, like great. So,
I gotta tell you something, Dino. We've now had clients who we've never even seen in person who've done our training, and they are doing out the roof, like amazing. And so it's actually I agree. It's actually, we're actually reaching more people now than ever.
Yeah.
And so it's great now.
Well, the principles are the principles, right? If you have something that works, it doesn't matter if it's necessarily in person. Sure, it's nice to be around people. I like in-person events too. I love being on stages. Yeah. And the principles are the principles. If you can translate those principles through the screen, if you actually work them, they'll work.
Yeah.
So it's super important. Wow. Well, you guys, this has been so educational about what you do and how, you're able to really transform practices. I hope everybody listening really gets the idea that my purpose of the show always is to bring the best practices to you and to help you. And listen, if this is your first time listening to the show, you might not know this, but if you've heard 10 episodes of the show, you know that I'm a huge fan of the sales process, is understanding it, that every team member should understand they're actually in sales too, whether it be that 20-year-old person at the front desk or you as the doctor, but that your obligation as a business owner is to bring in more money and to grow the business. That's the obligation. That's why you're in business. It's why you're not running a nonprofit charity, which you still need money for, but we won't get into that. So we've come to a part of our show, you guys, that we always do, which is basically our lightning round, where we ask you 6 questions that we ask everybody, and it's just the first answer that comes to the top of your head. Are you both willing to play?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So what do you feel is the most expensive thing that private practice owners are missing in their practice?
Ding, ding, ding.
All right, Anthony, you go first.
So that one is, it's actually their lost income. It's the amount of money that they didn't make that day because they're not trained.
The money they left on the table.
Yep.
Yeah, so true. What about you, Scott? What about you, Jeff?
I'm going to go with themselves. They are missing from the practice. They're just not all in. They're just in one area and they're not in the rest of it. And that's costing them a lot of money.
Wow. Deep thoughts by Jack Handy there. That's a really good one.
I love Jack Handy.
Good, man. That's good. All right. Number 2, what is a book that you believe every private practice owner should read?
I would say, there is a book by a practice owner, Dr. Greg Winteregg, and it's called Fun at Work. I think that's a good book because it is by a practice owner who successfully had fun at work and achieved his goals. So
yeah, that's good. That's great.
I'm going to go with, I really like this book and I remember listening to it. The Obstacle is the Way. Yeah, I think it's Ryan Holiday. It's a great book. It's just, how do you turn obstacles into advantage, and I really like that book.
And I think if more people thought that way about realizing that what I'm facing right now is the way that I lean in, I can actually make this to my advantage. COVID was a great example of that. Yeah. Virtual is a great example of that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of books, in my book, The Practice RX, I focus a lot on team culture and team performance as the foundation for business growth. What do you see is the biggest challenge that your private practice owners are telling you that they're facing when it comes to their team and their office culture?
Jeff, you want to go that first?
Well, they usually tell us one right now. They can't find anybody. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
for sure.
But let's take that off the table, right?
Yeah.
Like, can't find anybody. The other one is that we used to hear is just like, I don't have a team that does what, they don't support me. And I often turn it around and say, well, did you give them metrics? Did you give them training? How could they possibly support you when you haven't told them how to support you, except for answer the phone?
Which is fascinating, right? Are you supporting them so they can support you?
Them? Yeah. And so I feel like that's probably the number one thing, and they could do a lot more to support these guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right,
and
Anthony.
I agree with Jeff. The only thing I would add is games. Offices like games, having something to go towards, having something to achieve. But again, that falls back on the owner by not being business trained. Like, you need games, you need to keep it fun.
Yeah. Well, I use a quote when I'm getting ready to get on stage. Most people will. That's in my bio about how there's so much research that shows that your intelligence increases by 31% when you're in a positive and fun environment. Yeah. Why would you not want everybody in your office to be smarter? Like, right. People that go to work dreading things and feeling like, when's my doc going to yell at me, or how am I going to mess this up? Like, gosh, make it fun and pleasant and they'll be smarter. They just will. All right. Question number 4 is something that we have to get into, which is, man, how can people reach out to you? How can they find out more about MGE and what you guys are up to and when you're doing a next event? Okay, good. Well, the 2 ways is go to mgeonline.com. So mgeonline.com. That's where we show our free seminars. Every other week, we're delivering free seminars for 4 CE credits. And they're great topics, so that's one way. If you have any questions, you can just call us, and the number is 1-800-640-1140. Awesome. That's great. I love it. Okay. Number 5, what is the best advice that you've ever received in life or business? Jeff?
It's a game. Have fun, and it gets back to what you were saying. And that was, they always say it to you when you're down, you're like, but it was true. If you can make it a game, it's going to be fun. Yeah, it's true. I think the best advice I got is that any area in your life where you don't feel confident, it just simply means that you're lacking knowledge in that area. Yep. If you're like, I don't know what to do about this, well, you need to find out more about this. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I think it's Brendan Burchard who does the thing where he says, I don't know about this yet. Right? It's just a matter of having that mindset of yet, I will get to it. Exactly. All right, last question. What is the best resource or tool that every private practice owner should be using to grow their practice? Oh, I would say themselves. As far as a tool, they've kind of taken themselves out of the business equation. And if they put themselves in the equation and get themselves trained, that's the best tool they could ever have. Because then they're not relying on anybody else but themselves. Yeah, that's true. What about you, Jeff? What do you think? I'm on that same boat. I think it's really, they are the most important part of the practice. So they're the first employee, they're the last. And so the more they could put into themselves, the better it's going to be for them. One of my financial advisors always talks about this idea that you are the most important asset in your business. Invest more in you. Like, I know everybody's hot on Bitcoin right now and whatever crypto, but you are the most important asset. Invest in you first before you start putting money elsewhere. Go to the courses, find out more information, learn how to overcome your fear of sales and dealing with objections, learn how to be a better leader and a business owner. That's a smart investment, and it's going to pay off way more. Your ROI on that is way more than, finding a new investment to put money into or a new laser. Right. So true. We have the same viewpoint. Well, you guys, this has been such an educational time. I really appreciate you being here, and especially knowing that we had the star of A Party Called Earth right here on our own show. That is a first. That lead actor awesome. That is amazing, and we will never let you forget that, Anthony. So. But yeah, I need to. So maybe I will do more acting and do another movie, and then I'll update you. Okay, I'll give you. Okay, all right. Yeah, you have to update your IMDb profile to see what's going on.
Well, you guys, seriously, in all sincerity, thank you so much for sharing your information or wisdom with us and sharing these best practices, which everyone listening to hopefully was edified through and took a lot of notes. So I really appreciate you guys being here.
And thanks for inviting us, Dino. I really appreciate it. You're an awesome individual, and thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, everybody, again, thank you for listening to another episode of the Propreneur Podcast. As always, our goal here is to help you be more proactive, productive, and profitable in all areas of your life and business. And today was definitely no shortage of that information. Being able to share with you that information is what we do here and how important it is to us. And we really do appreciate you sharing this information with other people. So as you're out there making yourself more productive, profitable, and make sure that you share not only this information with others, but check out MGE on their website. Go to mgeonline.com. See, like, again, as I always say on the show, it's just a matter of getting information. It can't hurt you. You can just learn more and you can do better. So thank you. We'll see you all on the next episode, everybody. Thanks so much again for listening to the Propreneur Podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. Also, if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast as a guest or know somebody who you think would be, go ahead and email us at dino@dinowatt.com. Again, thanks for support. We'll see you on the next episode.